Breaking news. Please stand by for another C2C World News Now current event.
Syrian Kurds into oblivion. Well, if this sounds confusing to you, wait till you hear the bombshell, which has been revealed in the Podesta emails part 3.
Good evening, friends. We start tonight with a treasure of emails released by WikiLeaks giving an unvarnished look at where Hillary Clinton stands on foreign policy. In the first debate, Clinton said this about the United States' involvement in Syria if she's president.
I would not use American ground forces in Syria. I think that would be a very serious mistake. I don't think American troops should be holding territory, which is what they would have to do as an occupying force. I don't think that is a smart strategy.
The recent email dump shows Clinton advocating for supporting the Kurdish forces instead of direct military involvement. There is also a Saudi connection. Alexei Yaroslavsky has more on that story tonight.
In August 2014, Hillary Clinton sent an email to John Podesta, her campaign chairman, who was then counselor to President Obama, outlining her 7-point plan on defeating ISIS in Syria and Iraq. These new emails have been revealed by the WikiLeaks as part of the Podesta emails part 3. Now, at the top of this plan, the former state secretary said that in Iraq it was important to engage ISIL using the resources of the Peshmerga fighters of the Kurdish regional government, and would if any reliable units exist in the Iraqi army. With this U.S. aid, the Kurdish troops can inflict a real defeat on ISIS, said Hillary Clinton. She also said if we provided advisors and planners as well as an increased close air support for the Peshmerga, these soldiers could defeat ISIS. Well, indeed, this sounds like a great plan, using somebody on the ground to defeat the world's #1 enemy without actually using boots on the ground. And indeed, at some part, it has worked. Kurdish fighters in Iraq were supported by the U.S. from the air and stopped ISIS advances in the country. Effectively, the YPG fighters, the Kurdish fighters in Syria, were also a key ally of the United States coalition in the fight against ISIS in Syria. That is before one of the close partners of the United States in the region, Turkey, decided to bomb the Syrian Kurds into oblivion. Well, if this sounds confusing to you, wait till you hear the bombshell, which has been revealed in the Podesta emails part 3. In further part of the plan, the former state secretary says that while this military and paramilitary operation is moving forward, we need to use our diplomatic and more traditional intelligence assets to bring pressure on the governments of Qatar and Saudi Arabia, which are providing financial and logistic support to ISIS and other radical Sunni groups in the region. The Qataris and Saudis will be put in a position of balancing policy between their ongoing competition to dominate the Sunni world and the consequences of serious U.S. pressure. Needless to say, this is the very same Saudi Arabia and Qatar who have donated north of $30 million to the Clinton Foundation, and the very same Saudi Arabia which struck a record-breaking arms deal with the United States when Hillary Clinton was in charge of the Department of State. Given these new revelations by WikiLeaks, it is really hard to imagine what would relations between Washington and Riyadh be like if Hillary Clinton wins the presidency in November. But there's even a bigger question that everybody should ask oneself right now, whether these things discussed in those emails were her private position or a public one. Alexei Yaroslavsky, RT, reporting from outside the Saudi Arabian embassy in Washington, D.C.
The Donald Trump controversy isn't going away. Women are coming forward accusing Trump of sexism, although he continues to defend his lewd comments as just locker room talk. At Sunday's debate, Trump dodged questions about the tape and pivoted the conversation to U.S. strategy on ISIS.
I don't like Assad at all, but Assad is killing ISIS. Russia is killing ISIS, and Iran is killing ISIS. And those three have now lined up because of our weak foreign policy.
Trump says on his website he wants to end the strategy of regime change. The Obama administration has said repeatedly Assad must go. For more on all of this, let's turn to Jim Jatras, former GOP Senate foreign policy advisor. Jim, good to have you with us again tonight. Does Trump have it right on the Middle East or in that comment?
Of course he does. Assad, the Iranians, and the Russians are fighting against ISIS and al-Qaeda and the Heinz 57 varieties of jihadists that we insist on calling moderates that really are not.
Does Hillary Clinton have a consistent position on the Middle East based on the emails that have been released, the communication, and also what she said in the first debate about her policy with Syria?
It's consistently wrong. She is basically creating a third option where there isn't one. That she talks about fighting Islamic radicals, and of course in the email that was released, she knows that our allies, Saudi Arabia, the Gulf states, are supporting ISIS, Al-Qaeda, all these other jihadist groups. She also talks about getting rid of Assad. Well, who's going to be the third force to take over? There simply isn't one. There are no moderates capable of taking power. That's where her policy is nonsensical.
How revealing are these emails about her position and her acknowledgement in communication with staffers in dealing with the Saudi and Qatar?
The first thought that occurred to me, this was August of 2014, over a year after she left the State Department. My first thought was she just didn't discover that day the Saudis and the Qataris are supporting ISIS. When did she know that when she formulated this absolutely absurd policy?
Well, clearly she was formulating policy with her staff, knowing that she was going to run for president, but of course she didn't announce until a year later.
Right.
So what insight does that give us? What insight do these emails give us on what kind of president she would be and what kind of foreign policy she would advocate for?
Well, one thing I noticed, by the way, she says pressure the Saudis, but she doesn't say pressure to do them exactly what. She doesn't say in so many words, make them stop supporting ISIS. And as the report pointed out, she's gotten a lot of money in the foundation from these people. So I think she would continue to tread carefully with governments we know are supporting terrorists. She would continue to have an unrealistic policy about where we want to go with this. But the bottom line with her will be belligerence. Let's attack Assad. Let's get into this war.
There's a school of thought that Assad will never give up power as long as the Russians are allies. So where does that leave the United States? Are we at a crossroads of making a decision? Is this country at a crossroads of making a decision?
I think we are. The Obama administration, I believe, just simply wants to keep it simmering until President Obama hopes takes office.
But he wants Assad out for what reason?
He wants Assad out for what reason? Because we said so. It really boils down to that. That was the position we took. We had this whole mythology of the Arab Spring, that this is all caused by the oppressive government. And you know, it's not in the real world, Ed.
Jim Jatras, great to have you with us tonight. Thanks so much.
This has been a C2C World News Now current event. Stay safe, everyone.